Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's been a while since I've talked about books, so I thought this would be a fun video to discuss the books that I got for Christmas, that I got on a casual Wednesday, Thursday, Monday afternoon at a Barnes & Noble, and talk about also the books that I've read so far this year and the one that I'm currently reading. There's a lot. This is a huge pile. Let me just show you. It's a lot. Please don't judge me. Okay, I've had enough judgment in my life. Recently, a lot of judgment about the books that I have been buying. I know it's a problem, but again, like, I will be reading them all, so just mind your business. This is painful to look at. I'm not gonna lie. It's much worse on camera. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'll be real. I have a problem. I'm never saying I don't have a problem. I fully admit I have a problem. All right, let's jump into it. Okay, so the first book that I'm going to talk about is Collide. I saw this on Book Talk a few months ago. I saw a lot of people talking about it. It was right after I read Icebreakers by Hannah Grace. I was like, okay, you know, it kind of sounds the same. It's like a reverse Grumpy Sunshine. The girl's a psychology major. I was a psychology major. She's running an experiment on a hockey team and talking about like athletes burnout. I'm like, this sounds interesting. So I was gifted this. I heard it's kind of a knockoff of Icebreakers, so we'll see how that goes. I see a lot of quotes of that book, and I was intrigued. The next book is Normal People. I've been wanting to read this book. On New Year's Day, I started reading it, and I gave up. I wasn't bored, I just wasn't. I'm becoming a little bit more of a mood reader, and I thought I would read this right away when I got it, and I tried, but I failed, so I gave up. I will be reading it soon. I've recently become a mood reader, and usually it's like, okay, this is next on my TBR, I'm gonna read it, but I've been picking books that I'm in the mood for, which is, you know, it's pretty cool. I like to say I'm a mood reader now. Oh, Normal People? I actually don't know what Normal People is about. I heard it kind of has the trope of right people, wrong time. And it's about these like two people. They go to the same high school, but they pretend they don't know one another. They're kind of friends outside of school. They know each other outside of school. And then they end up going to the same college. And I think there's a romance that's developed there. And it kind of like follows them throughout the years. That's what I believe this book is about. I've heard many great quotes from this book, so I was always intrigued to read it, and I've never watched the TV show, but I would like to read this book before I watch the TV show, and I heard a lot of great things about the TV show also, so I'm excited to read this book. Another book that I got is All Roads Lead Here by Mariana Zapata. She's an author that I've been hearing a lot about recently. She's also the author of The Walls in the Winnipeg, or The Wall Up the Window. Something about a wall in a Winnipeg. I don't have that book. I have it on Spotify to eventually listen to, maybe. Also, this is like a small town romance. I think it's like a Grumpy Sunshine type thing. Single dad trope, I believe, also. All good things. I like all those tropes, so I'm excited to check it out. I don't know if you can see my little creepy dog. Come here. The next book that I got was In the Weeds by B.K. Borison. Now, I read Love Light Farms for Christmas, and I enjoyed that book. It obviously is a series. It's part of a series. So it introduced a lot of characters in Love Light Farms that are going to have their own book. So I'm excited to read this. The handyman, helper, gardener man, like rugged, manly man, very reserved, quiet. And then this influencer woman comes in. They have a past that you learn about in the first book. This is their relationship and how they develop their relationship in this book. I love a good like quiet man and an extroverted woman. However, recently I'm gonna talk about something really fast, and I could get slack on, but I mean, I don't know. I feel like it's just a common thing now that I'm just gonna have to get used to, but I've been reading romance books. It's really hard now to have a unique, defined character trait that the main female character has. I feel like all of the female characters that I have read about recently, actually no, not recently, starting my whole reading journey and all the books that I've read so far, it's really hard to differentiate some of the like comedic romance novels that I've read. All of the female characters, I feel like, had the same personality trait. They're quirky, they think they're different, that they're not like other girls, have like an internal dialogue in their head, but then you find out it wasn't actually in their head, they said all of it out loud. All of the female characters that I've read, they all have that quirk about them, so it doesn't make them different. And it's been bothering me a lot. I read Icebreaker and I just finished Wildfire. There was many moments in the book where I was like, Aurora is just like Stassi. And it's hard because it's like sometimes you just want a shy, introverted, to herself, woman, female character, but it's like, you know, some people might not want to read about that. I want to read about that because it's like that quirky, I'm different, I'm bold and extroverted type female character is just oversaturated for me at this point, that a lot of the characters I think are the same. That's my little pet peeve that I just had to share. I could be the only one. I just feel like I've been noticing that recently and I wanted to put it out there just to see if anyone else was feeling that way. The next book that I want to talk about is going to be a part of something that I'm going to be doing in February. I decided that in the whole month of February, instead of reading cheesy, lovey-dovey, heartfelt, rom-com romance novels, I will be reading dark romances for the whole month of February. Now, is this a good idea? Probably not. Is it good for my mental health? Probably not. But I'm excited. I'm kind of excited to see how this is gonna go. I've only read one dark romance before. Well, I guess it's technically two, but it was Haunting Adeline and Hunting Adeline by H.D. Carlton. I think I have like 9 books that I'm going to be trying to read in the month of February. We're going to see if I can do that. Yes, I am going to be doing that for all of February, and we're going to see how that goes. One of the books that I will be reading in that month is Does It Hurt by H.D. Carlton. It's the same author of Hunting Adeline. I heard a lot of great things about it. I also heard a lot of concerning things about it. I'm intrigued. It doesn't sound anything like Haunting Adeline, which is kind of good because I'm still kind of in limbo when it comes to that book, if I liked it or not. I go back and forth. Like, do I love Zaid? Do I not like Zaid? Where was the consent? He's doing good things, he's doing bad things. Anyways, I think it's like they had a romance before and then she left and then they meet again and then they end up on a deserted island. I think that's how it goes. I mean, there's obviously a lot more to it, but that's what I know the gist about of this book. I'm excited to read it because I did hear a lot of great things about it. Although recently I've been trying to take things that I hear on TikTok with a grain of salt. There's so many books that I've read because of book talk. You know, starting my reading journey again, I wanted some recommendations and didn't turn out at all what I thought they were going to be. So that's on me. I decided to buy the book. I decided to listen to that book, but we'll see how this goes with Does It Hurt? But I am excited because it's a whole new universe that I'm being introduced into. The next book that I will be reading in February is a book that I'm really excited for because I heard so many great things about it. I heard it's funny, which is just a little concerning, but makes me even more excited to read. It's Butcher and Blackbird by Bryn Weaver. Literally, I haven't heard one bad thing about it. And the concept of it is it's literally like 2 serial killers falling in love with each other, I think. That's the basis of it, but like the things that they do for one another and just like the things that they do in general is really funny to people. People say they laugh a lot during this book, which again is a little concerning, but I'm intrigued. So this is going to be pushed to February, which is very soon. The next 2 books that I will be talking about is a part of the series, and it's a part of the Caraval series. So it is Legendary and the Finale. These are the 2 books that I got. I read Caraval, and I liked Caraval. I was kind of in and out on whether I liked it or not. I remember majority of it, but there's obviously some specifics that I've forgotten. So maybe I'll reread it when I decide to read these 2. I think I rated Caraval 3.5 stars from what I remember, because there were some parts that were boring. Now that I know the ending, I won't be as confused if I reread the book, because I was just confused throughout the whole book. Like, you don't know what's real, you don't know what's like fake, you don't know what's magic, because it is a magic book. Maybe I'll like it a little bit more, but that's kind of where I'm at right now with Caraval. But I did want to continue on with the series because I did like Caraval. It's not like I hated it and didn't care about the rest of the books. I did hear that the Legendary one is really good. I'm looking forward to reading these 2. But this series goes into the, I believe, prequel, which is Once Upon a Broken Heart, also The Ballad of Never After, then A Curse of True Love. These are the 3 books that I believe are a prequel to Caraval. I am very excited to read these. First of all, let's just give a little love to the cover of this book. They are gorgeous. Look at how beautiful they are. Like, come on. just impeccable. These are the covers for the UK version. I found out this website on TikTok called Blackwell's, and it is a UK website that has not every book out there, but there's a lot of books out there that they have different covers. So if you don't like the US version for some covers, you can go on Blackwell's and see if you like the UK version better. They have paperback, they have hardback. Recently, I have talked about my Chestnut Springs, special editions, and then they came out with the newer covers, and I don't like the US version. I think the font for it is really bulky. I also don't like that the letters cut off at the end. It drives me crazy, and I don't even own that type of cover, and it drives me crazy whenever I see it. I went on this website and I was talking to my best friend about it, and I saw that they had a different version for the whole Chestnut Springs series, and where the title is in cursive. It looks so much more cohesive, it looks beautiful. So I told her about this website, and she ended up returning the US cover edition that she got and ended up ordering the UK version instead. And so it's just a lot prettier, it's better. I don't know, whoever approved the US version needs to reassess their life choices because it's just ugly. That's where I'm at. If you have ever not liked a US version of a cover, or you think maybe the UK one is better, they do have a lot of good deals on Blackwell's also, so give it a try, give it a look. But yeah, although I do love the US versions of the cover, I think these are just like more magical, and especially with books that talk about magic, I feel like they just have to look magical. The only thing that I don't like is the different sizing, but I think that might be a normal thing. I'm not really sure. I'm not that too hung up on it, but that is one thing to keep in mind. All right, and then the last book that I want to talk about that I got recently is Done and Dusted by Lila Sage. If you've heard me talk about this book before, you know that I actually listened to this book on Spotify. It was the first book that I listened to on Spotify, and it was my first cowboy romance that I've ever listened to. I love this book, so I had to buy the physical copy of this book because it is going to be a continued on series, so I'm looking forward to the series. Obviously, I'm going to continue buying the rest of the series. I wanted to have a physical copy, but I definitely need to reread this. There's so many quotes that I really wanted to annotate when I was listening to it. I'm like, oh my god, this man is fine. This cowboy man, fine. I do love this. It's a best friend's brother's trope. She moved to another town and has come back into her hometown and is trying to rediscover her roots. So good, so good. And the banter that they have with one another is just, I think it's really cute too. And then so far I have finished 4 books. I just want to discuss my thoughts on them very quickly. The first one that I finished was Powerless by Lauren Roberts, and I was so disappointed when I finished this book. I wanted to drag it out as long as I could because I already am behind. Like, when I first started this book, I knew I was behind. It came out months ago, and so many people were talking about how great this book was, and I kept trying to push it out because I was like, okay, on the back it says that it's coming out in April, in one of the months. Did it just all of a sudden disappear? Okay, I'm tripping. I am tripping. I'm not tripping. Okay, it says that the second book will be released in May 2024. I go on TikTok, I go on this girl's page. It is going to be released not in May, but instead, Reckless, which is the second book in this series, it will be released in July. No thanks, I want it now. This is probably one of the best books that I've read in a long time. It is so good. It's definitely a slow burn. They have great banter. I wouldn't really say, I could say enemies, but it's more so of like rivals. It's a mixture of Hunger Games and Divergent. I don't know, I kind of got Harry Potter vibes too at the end, where they do not the Scorched Trials, that's the Maze Runner. What is that Harry Potter with, the Goblet of Fire. That's the one. It's just like an overall fantasy, great book. I love the female character. She is a badass. After reading this book, I really wanted to step in my fantasy era, but I don't have that many fantasy books. I have the whole ACOTAR series. Don't think I'm mentally prepared for that yet. I need to really evaluate my life right before I'm going to read that, because I know it's going to take up a lot of time and a lot of effort, a lot of mental capacity that I don't know if I'm ready to have that take up space. Do you know how thick these books are? They're huge. And then I know that if I read ACOTAR, I'm gonna have to read the Throne of Glass series. And that's like, what, 6 books or something? And then after that, I'm gonna have to read Crescent City. And each book is like this thick. And there's 3 of them. I just know it's like, what, a 15 book series? That's a lot. That's a lot of time and effort to set that time aside for just one universe of books. I need to figure out time to do that, but going back to Powerless, this is so good. It's a YA romance. There's great quotes in here. Like, I can't remember the last time I underlined so much in this book, and I didn't tab every page that I had underlined quotes for, but like literally look at almost like there's so much that is underlined on this page alone. Kai, he is the main male character. He is the son of a king. He has a brother that's set to take the throne. Kai is the one that is going to be basically the killer for the king. He's going to be the right-hand man. He's going to be the security guard. He's going to be the person that lays down the law. Then Peyton comes in, and there's kind of like a love triangle with the brothers, but she obviously has her own issues. There's just a whole bunch of trials in this book. It also deals with powers. So the elites have powers, and then there's the people who aren't a part of the elites but still have powers, and then there's the ordinaries that have no powers, and the king wants to get rid of the ordinaries. Peyton has to hide that she is an ordinary, and so she's placed into these trials with people who have powers, and she tries to come out alive of it, and it's a whole thing. It's just every word, I was on the edge of my seat. Usually with these types of books, I need to visualize it. I'm not the biggest fan when it comes to reading it, but every quote that the man was saying and the tension that she wrote about, I could picture it so vividly in my head that I'm just obsessed. I'm obsessed with this book, and like I said, I was trying to drag it out as long as I could. I can't wait until July to read Reckless, but I'm gonna have to, and that's where I'm at with this book. But I do definitely recommend to give this if you're into fantasy or want to kind of like dip your toes into fantasy. I think this is a great starting block to read Powerless. And like I said, I wanted to get into fantasy after I read Powerless, so I couldn't decide if I wanted to read The Fourth Wing, and then I would have to read Iron Flame. I don't know where I'm at right now with that whole thing, but I decided not to. And then I have Divine Rivals, but I didn't have Ruthless Vows, so I knew I would have to buy that book, which is not a part of it. I wanted to read Divine Rivals because I heard so many great things about that book, but I didn't have Ruthless Vows. The only other book that I had that was like fantasy related was Cruel Prince, and I know that's a part of a series. I decided if I like the first book, I will buy the rest of the series. I read Cruel Prince by Holly Black. I don't really know where I'm at with this book because this is a book that I bought because of Book Talk. I didn't hear a lot of bad things about it, so I thought, why not? But when I read it, I was just kind of bored. I didn't like the female main character. Honestly, you root for like 2 different people in this book because you want them to be really good, you want them to be different. However, they're not different, they're bad. I felt deceived. There was only maybe like 2 or 3 times in this book where I like audibly gasped, but other than that, I found the book boring. People say whoever finds this book boring, they don't know what a slow burn romance is, and all they want is an insta love and all this stuff, which I love a slow burn romance. I am obsessed with slow burn, but they just didn't seem right for me. Like, there was no connection for me. I felt more of like a platonic relationship more than a romantic one. I literally had no connection to any of the characters in this book at all, and that's what kind of put me off this book. I think the world building that she described was very creative, and I really enjoyed that aspect of it, but when it came to the characters themselves, I did not like them. But I didn't hate this book. I gave this book maybe 3.5 stars, so I decided to go on Spotify, and they had the second and third book on Spotify. So I listened to the second book when I was driving down to LA, because that's a 6-hour drive, and so I was listening to it. I have DNF'd it at this point. I really do not like the second book. I despise her sister in the second book. I really, really, really hate her. I want to strangle her Every single time she speaks, I was in LA traffic listening to this audiobook, screaming at the sister because I could not stand her. The female main character, I'm not really the biggest fan of, so I have stopped right now at the moment. It's not really intriguing to me, and so I am putting a pause on it right now. That's my first DNF so far for this year. I will, for this year, it's January still, Hannah, don't be so dramatic. I will go back to reading it or like listening to it. I know I will, but there's other books that I want to spend my hours on, and that's where I'm at right now. That's kind of unfortunate, but I talked about Divine Rivals and how I want to read that, so I ended up going to Barnes & Noble and getting Ruthless Vows. Divine Rivals will probably be the next series that I decide to read after I finish Chestnut Springs, because I want to finish that because I'm obsessed with that. I want to finish, but I don't want to finish. I love them so much, but I don't want to finish because I love them so much. It's the only series so far that I really feel like I want to like live in. I felt that way for the Twisted series, but that's just too much for me. It's just too much going on. Chestnut Springs, it's more down to earth. I love Harvey. I love him so much. I wish that he was in my life. He is such a like grandpa, old soul man. He's my favorite character in that whole series. I love him so much. But the next book that I finished is The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston, and I was so excited for this book because I read The Dead Romantics in the fall, and I gave that book 5 stars, and I know a lot of people didn't find it that interesting, but that book had such a powerful message for me. Ashley Poston is the poster child of writing about grief and making it so heartfelt and beautiful, like it's poetry. She makes you feel sad, but sad in a good way. It's amazing. Her writing is so good. So I gave The Dead Romantics 5 stars. This one I gave 4.75 stars. It's still equally as good, but The Dead Romantics, that kind of tugged on my heart because of a more personal issue that I've dealt with in my life. So I felt more connected to that book than this one. But I think the magic and the beauty behind this book is so wonderful. Like I could not stop raving about this. It's definitely a book that I will reread. And when I reread it again, I'll probably give it 5 stars. But any book from Ashley Poston, I will read because I love her. The last book that I've finished is Wildfire by Hannah Grace, and I discussed previously that I have finished this book. But yeah, where do I start with this book? So I think I gave Icebreakers 4 stars, and then I kind of reflected on it because it's hard for me to rate books right after I read it because I think it's either like really good and then I reflect on it and I'm like, yeah, it wasn't that good, or I finished the book and I hate it. But with this one and Icebreaker, it's basically the same girl. I didn't like Anastasia in the first book. I wasn't a fan of her. I thought she was trying way too hard to be like a badass. She kind of just reminded me of like a chihuahua, like always yapping. The main reason why I liked Icebreakers was because of Nate and the whole gang for the hockey team, and so I really appreciated their friendship and their relationship, and so that's why I wanted to continue on the series. Is I love the boys. I really liked Russ, so I wanted to give his story a listen. This one doesn't take place at the college like Icebreaker does. It takes place at a summer camp, and these two, they go to the same college, they have a one-night stand, and then they go to summer camp. They run into each other at the summer camp. They didn't know that either one of them were going to be there. They get to know each other on a deeper level. They find out that they have a lot of family problems in common. So much of this book I found boring. Icebreakers, if there wasn't smut in it, I would find that book boring, but because there was so much going on within their relationship, that is kind of what made the plot a little bit more interesting for me. But there was no, I mean, there was spicy scenes in here, but it wasn't as intense as Icebreaker. Because there was less spice in it, there was ultimately no plot for me, so I found it boring and kind of just skimming a lot of the pages because I didn't find them interesting. Like, I liked Russ. I felt like his anxiety and his introvertedness on a personal level. I think I gave this the same amount as Icebreakers, like 3.5, maybe just 3 stars. I'm excited for Henry's book. Henry is my favorite character. He's gonna be the next one, so I'm intrigued on how that's gonna go because the girl is wearing a Taylor Swift cardigan on the cover. So I know I'm gonna like her. That's where I kind of stand with the whole Icebreaker, Hockey, Maple Hill series so far. They are equally mediocre. The last book that I'm going to talk about is a book that I have not finished yet, but I am currently listening to on Spotify, and that is Love Theoretically by Ali Hazelwood. This is my first Ali Hazelwood book, and I heard that a lot of her books are kind of the same storyline, the same dynamic between the female character and the main male character. None of them really stood out to me except for Love Theoretically, so I'm like, okay, if they're all the same, I'm gonna pick one that stands out to me the most, and I'll just listen to that one. So I am listening to Love Theoretically right now, and I think it's really good. I really like Jack. I love when a man is, there's no games. Like, it's straight to the point. You know exactly what you're getting. It's brutal honesty, but at least it's honesty and he's not lying. Very firm, very smart, kind of arrogant, but in a cheeky way, you know? I love those type of main characters. That's why I love Cade from Heartless so much by Elsie Silver. I'm also currently reading Physically, the physical book copy of Reckless by Elsie Silver. And I love Theo. Like, Theo is really close to Cade right now. And I think that's absurd because I didn't think anyone would be like super, like, I liked Jasper. I thought he was closer to Cade than Rhett was. Theo is, I think, my second one, and then Jasper, and then Rhett so far. That's where I'm at with the books that I'm currently reading, the books that I have on my TBR list to read eventually. I'm gonna end the video here. If you want to let me know your thoughts on any of these books that I've discussed that's on my TBR list or that I've read so far or that I'm currently reading, please comment down below. Let me know. I want to really start a book community here. I have one best friend that I talk about books with, and then another friend that I'm starting to talk a little bit more about books. I just love talking about books because everyone's opinions about books are so different, and I love that because what I might feel about a book, you might feel the complete opposite, and I respect that because the way that we view different things is what makes the world go round, baby. Makes the world go round. Tell me your opinions on the book if you want to, and let me know. I also talk a lot about books on my TikTok, so I'll have all of my other social media platforms linked down below if you want to give them a follow. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I will be seeing you in the next video. Bye.